Hey guys, what's up? Dingo Crikey here with another commentary video. This time I'm going to be doing my 4th Transformers 5 character predictions video. So, I figured it was time to put out another one of these, as I've gotten a lot of suggestions for characters to talk about since my last video, and I'll go through the rundown for anyone who hasn't seen my previous videos like this. Basically, this isn't really a super professional video. It isn't really reporting on Transformers 5 news. It's just kind of, people give suggestions for different characters who might appear in Transformers 5, and in the video and in the comment section, we kind of discuss the probability of the different characters showing up, how they would appear, even if it's not that probable that they would show up. Just kind of, look at what we know of the movies, where the movies seem to be going, and if they were to introduce any of these characters, how exactly would they deal with them. If there is any news on these characters appearing in the films, whether we have like a confirmation from Michael Bay that they won't, or, Hasbro has trademarked the character recently and people are thinking that might be evidence, something like that, I'll include that in the video. But overall, this is kind of just a video for fun, so keep that in mind when you're watching it. Though, if there is news or, any potential evidence, I will try to include it. Also, if you like this video, but maybe you have some characters in mind who weren't discussed here, you can check out my previous Transformers 5 character predictions. This is my 4th video, so I have 3 previous ones. Check those out and see if the character was covered there. And if not, then you can drop off a comment in the comment section below suggesting a character for a future video. As always, I appreciate any suggestions, and it's cool to see the different theories going around out there and discuss all that stuff. Speaking of that, let's get into the suggestions. And the first one comes from user Colin Roe, and he suggests a number of characters. Usually I only take about maybe 2 from each person just to give everyone a chance to get in suggestions. And in the comment, Colin Roe mentions that he's aware that I usually only pick 2 suggestions, so I don't really know why he suggested multiple characters, but the characters suggested are Ultra-Magnus, Red Alert, Cyclonus, Blitzwing, and Lockdown rebuilt by the creators. As far as most of them, I've covered them in previous videos. Ultra-Magnus might have been in my first one, Red Alert in my 3rd, and Cyclonus and Blitzwing somewhere in between. However, I haven't discussed whether or not Lockdown would come back in the future films. And before I get any deeper, I should mention that there will be spoilers here, probably just for Age of Extinction, but maybe for the first 3 films. So if you're concerned about that, there's a heads up. His theory on Lockdown coming back is that he would be rebuilt by the creators, and here's where we get into the spoilers, because Lockdown, of course, was killed at the end of Age of Extinction. So if he were to return, he would need to be resurrected in some way, and, the creators basically being his faction, they would be the people to do it. I would love to see Lockdown come back in Transformers 5, because I think he was a good character. He had a pretty good death, but I think they could still get more out of him. But unless we see the creators have a Lockdown clone or something of that sort, I don't think there's any way he could come back. For one, the creators are probably on the other side of the galaxy. I mean, they were so far off apparently that they sent a Lockdown, a bounty hunter, to do their dirty work rather than coming there themselves. So they wouldn't be around to salvage Lockdown's body or anything like that. Also, we don't even know how much was left of his body. I mean, this was a dude who got cut down the middle, so there probably goes his spark, his brain, all that kind of stuff. And furthermore, he was then blown up after Optimus basically set a bunch of Lockdown's own charges in that whole area, and Lockdown's corpse was presumably destroyed with everything else. So even if the KSI or something wanted to salvage some of his parts, and then it ended up having Lockdown's consciousness, something like the Galvatron situation, I mean, I don't know if there's anything left of his body to really do that with, so Lockdown's probably pretty much gone. Also, even if there was something to salvage, I think there's a better chance that the KSI or Galvatron could use it than the creators, because like I said, they're probably way far off in another point in the galaxy, and Lockdown wasn't part of their faction, really. He was more of just a bounty hunter, probably hired to do this, like Boba Fett or something. They're probably not going to shed too many green alien tears over his loss. And I could be wrong about this, but at this point, I'm assuming that the creators are pretty powerful, so they probably have other bounty hunters employed. I don't think Lockdown's anything too special to them. Though, I mean, he did capture all the nights and take over the night ship, so that's probably pretty impressive. But no, I don't think he'll be coming back. I think from a production point of view, they're also going to want to introduce new bad guys, though personally I would love Lockdown to come back, if for nothing else, to get like a proper figure, you know, like maybe an ultra class sized figure, and make it movie accurate, kind of give him the Revenge of the Fallen treatment. I would love to see that. I don't see it happening though. Anyways, thanks for the suggestion. The next one comes from user Xilent Stryker, and his comment reads, do you think Blurr or a new live action film character will be introduced in TF5? For example, Mudflap or Brains, who were never in any other continuity. So thanks for the comment, and I'll address the part about Blurr first, since he's a character that I've actually been asked about a lot. And personally, I really want to see Blurr in the films, so I might have a little bit of bias, but I honestly think that Blurr has a pretty good chance of showing up in Transformers 5. As always, we never really know what these movies are going to do because they seem random sometimes in, you know, the directions they take and which characters they pick out. But, I mean, they do take influences from Generation 1 and, you know, previous Transformer renditions. And if we're looking at G1, we have some of the storylines kind of lining up with when Blurr originally showed up in the cartoon series. For example, we have the appearance of Galvatron. In the cartoons originally, Blurr was appearing before Galvatron did, but basically they were kind of in the same story arcs, that kind of thing. We also have the whole idea of the creators in Generation 1, that is the Quintessons, and when they are introduced, you know, the Transformers creators, Blurr's playing into that arc. So, you know, I think that could be used as some evidence. We also have the fact that unlike a character such as, I'll just pull one out, Smokescreen, who I'm sure, unless you're looking at his Transformers Prime character, not many people could tell you something about. There might be a few fanboys out there. Personally, I really liked him in Armada, but overall he's not a super memorable character. Blurr, on the other hand, is a super distinct character. I mean, for example, his design is a pretty distinct one, and of course the fact that he's so fast, and on top of everything else, his entire voice, and you know, basically the fact that he can talk so fast. I could see them wanting to put his character in the films because, you know, they seem to like eccentric personalities. Maybe Blurr would be a little bit over the top for him because Michael Bay sometimes dislikes these kind of characters, but, you know, I could see them putting him in there for those reasons. Personally, I would love to see John Moschita Jr. come back for the voice. I don't know if he would. He did come back for the voice in Transformers Animated, so we'd have to see there, but I would think if they're going to bring him into the films, they would give him that voice because it's pretty important to his character. He didn't have that voice in Transformers Armada, but it was pretty much a totally different character just given the same name, which I don't really have a problem with. I'm just mentioning it. So if Blurr were to show up, I think he would definitely come with the Elite Guard, Ultra-Magnus' team, Rodimus's team, something like that. And I think he would fit that bill pretty well because he's a likable character. If you get around to know him, you get used to him. But if they wanted to introduce the Elite Guard as a group of characters who you're not going to really like because they seem opposed to the current Autobot cast and, you know, as the name would imply, sort of elitist in comparison, Blurr, especially if they took on some cues from his Transformers animated character, could fit that bill really well. You know, he would become likable over time, but when he's first introduced, we may just think he's a jerk with a really annoying way of talking. I think he could also be brought into Optimus's space journeys. I think that'd be a good way to introduce his character, kind of spice up that part of the storyline, since, you know, Optimus isn't the most exciting character in himself. No offense if you find him really entertaining just as a character, you know, that's cool, just for me personally, and seems to be the case with a good amount of people. Anyways, that's all my thoughts on Blurr. I think he would be a great addition, he would be super entertaining, he would fit into the movies well, and I think there's a pretty good chance we could see him. I mean, we also have an upcoming figure of him in the Titans Return line, so maybe that's another hint. But anyways, to get to the second part of your question about Mudflap and new characters, well, one thing I want to mention, a lot of new Transformer fans may not know this because they, you know, just haven't been around long enough, is that Mudflap was actually a character used in Transformers Cybertron, the 2006 series and toy line. Kind of a character that went under the radar, but yeah, kind of cool character, totally different than his movie counterpart in appearance and personality. Pretty cool toy too if you like blockier Transformers that still have a lot of articulation. But anyways, I think hands down we are going to see some new characters who were never in previous Transformers renditions. In Revenge of the Fallen, we had Scalpel. In Dark of the Moon, we had Dino. And in Age of Extinction, they had Stinger. So I think the track record's there to say, yeah, they're going to introduce some new characters, which I'm looking forward to. I think that's cool. Personally, I don't like how Transformers just recycles a lot of the same characters and same designs. So I would be totally open to it. I would like to see more than just one new character. You know, them use some older ones, but definitely introduce more new ones than they've done in the past. Anyways, that's my thoughts on that, and thanks for the question. I did want to mention that a user called KiaoTV also asked me about my thoughts on Blurr, so I also wanted to thank him for his comments. And the next question comes from user Big Daddy Reviews. His question: what about Bludgeon appearing in Transformers 5? What do you think? So thanks for this question, for just submitting it, and also bringing up Bludgeon, because he's one I really haven't thought of, and he's definitely an interesting one to think about, because here's the thing, he's kind of an obscure character. Like, if you're just, kind of a Transformers fan, but you don't read the comics, keep up with every release of the toy line, you probably don't know who Bludgeon is. So he's kind of an obscure character. I don't think he's ever been featured in the cartoons, and definitely not in the movies, and he's only had a few toys released, at least with the name Bludgeon, throughout the years. So just looking at that, it's hard to pinpoint what his chances of being in the film would be. However, when you look at his design and his character, I don't think there's any denying that he would make a great rival for Drift in the movies. You know, if they're going to bring Drift back, which I'm hoping they do, Bludgeon would be an awesome enemy for him, because he has the whole swords, he sort of has a samurai skeletal look to him. I don't think that there really needs to be a whole lot of explanation. I think he would be a really good fit. Now, I don't know how they would get him into the story per se. I mean, he could just be a Transformia-made Decepticon. I really wouldn't want them to go that route with him. The story's a little bit up in the air for what they would do in introducing his character. But personally, I think he would be really cool to see, and the fact that he can have that confrontation with Drift, they can make some cool giant robot sword fight. They might not want to pass up on that chance, so, we might get to see that. I'm still thinking they're probably going to want to go the route of introducing characters such as Cyclonus and Scourge, sort of those Season 3 Generation 1 characters, but you never know. This guy seems like a pretty good fit for the films. Even if he doesn't appear in the films, depending on how big the toy line is, they might give Drift a repaint as Bludgeon. That would be really cool to see if they kind of gave him a resculpted head and gave Drift a better figure this time around, maybe a Voyager class, a triple changer, do some remolding, and you could get a pretty cool Bludgeon out of that, or at least I would think so. Next question comes from user Michael Rosenblatt, and his question reads, so do you think Ratchet and Sideswipe will appear, because almost all of the Autobots just disappeared? Like, what? Okay, thanks for the question. I do want to cover this one really briefly because I've talked about it a ton in the past, but I do want to address it for, any new viewers who haven't seen my previous videos. Basically, I've done a ton of videos on this in the past. Just search my channel for Sideswipe, Ratchet, and you'll find a whole bunch of videos I've done on this topic discussing whether Sideswipe is actually dead, what evidence is there, what are Ratchet's chances of returning, how he could return if the producers decided they wanted it to happen. So, just use the search tool on my channel and search any of the deceased or missing Autobots names, but Ratchet and Sideswipe would be the best to search since I've discussed them the most. Anyways, moving on to the final question for this Q&A, and that comes from user Jordan Swift. The question reads, do you think Blackarachnia could be in any of the Transformers movies? If so, would she be a Decepticon because she was a Autobot? I'm guessing referring to the fact that in Transformers Animated, Blackarachnia was originally an Autobot before she was actually Blackarachnia. And there are some other renditions where she's a good guy at points, but I won't get into spoilers. So Blackarachnia is one where I think that her appearance overall kind of depends on whether or not they are going to introduce more beast, insect, arachnid type Transformers into the future films. I mean, we've had a number of more like beast Transformers, obviously the Dinobots in Age of Extinction, but even before that we had Laserbeak in Dark of the Moon and Revenge of the Fallen, we had Ravage, and then Scorponok even in the first film. Now, they could really easily introduce her character by making her on the scale of characters such as Frenzy or Scalpel, because being a spider Transformer, kind of a big spider, but, little in comparison to the rest of Transformers, would fit in with those, other little quick Transformers that crawl around and disrupt things and all of that. I think she could fit very easily into that role, and it would already line up with other things we've seen in the films. Personally, for myself, and I would think a lot of other people, we wouldn't want to see Blackarachnia handled like that, considering she is a pretty distinct character in Transformers fandom. But personally, I think that's pretty likely if she is going to appear at all. As far as a regular-sized Transformer, I'm really not sure about that. For one, I don't think any of the signs are pointing towards us seeing, like, insect Transformers as being a thing in Transformers 5. Definitely not ones that are the size of regular Transformers. Also, they don't seem to take a lot of influences from Beast Wars or the other series where Blackarachnia appeared. They seem more interested in coming up with, of course, their own ideas or taking influences from things like Generation 1, maybe some of the comics, stuff like that, and Blackarachnia doesn't really fit into any of those continuities, so she would almost feel weird being in the movies because she would be so different from the rest of the characters. Now, one thing that may be in the, defense of her showing up is the fact that we had a Widowmaker concept art for Transformers Age of Extinction, and if you don't know what it is, you can just look up Transformers Widowmaker and you will find the concept art for this female character. Doesn't really look like Blackarachnia, but, is, has that name, Widowmaker, and that is Blackarachnia's name in, I believe, the Japanese renditions, Black Widow. So maybe some people would find that to be sort of a crossover and being evidence that she could appear in Transformers 5, or that they're at least interested. Personally, I don't really take it as evidence for Blackarachnia making an appearance. Maybe they'll add Widowmaker, but, I'm not thinking Blackarachnia would appear, and even if they were to add Widowmaker, I don't think she would really substitute for Blackarachnia. We have no idea what the character would be like if she appeared, but what we have to go off of would be the design, and the design looks pretty different, especially considering Widowmaker has a tail. That pretty much nullifies the possibility of her being a spider. If she were to appear, I definitely think that she would be a Decepticon, maybe with the creators, Predacon. Basically, I think that she would be an evil character. Maybe she would come around eventually, but I don't think she would be an Autobot if she were to be introduced into the films. Anyways, I'm going to wrap things up here as it's already going on a lot longer than I wanted it to, which is usually the case with these Q&As, but I wanted to thank all of you guys for your questions, and if you guys or some other users have more questions, of course, feel free to drop them off in the comment section below. I'm always interested in taking topic suggestions. We have a long way till we get to Transformers 5, so there's a lot of stuff to talk about, and we're slowly getting more news on the movie, so that will definitely open up more discussion. If you're interested in other videos like this, you can of course go to my channel. I have a whole bunch of videos on Transformers 5, the future Transformers films, and the cartoons, the toy line, basically anything Transformers related. You can also follow me on Twitter for more regular updates on Transformers, Bionicle, what I'm doing, my thoughts on some recent developments and say Transformers toys, that kind of stuff. If that sounds cool to you, then check it out. And that's all I have to say for now. Thanks for watching, stay tuned, and have a good one, guys. I'll see you soon.